Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. Good morning, Life After Life Club. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. As Mary so nicely introduced me, I am Cris August, and I'm the director of OC Ghosts and Legends. We have been in operations officially since 2011, and we continue ongoing paranormal research into various alleged haunted locations, not just here in California, but abroad as well. Before we kind of get into things, I kind of like to read the room briefly. There's no right or wrong answer, but by a show of hands, how many people believe that there are spirits, that there is an afterlife? Most everyone. Okay, where are skeptics? There you go. Okay. Frankly, everyone should be a little skeptical. When I mean that is, well, I'm an open-minded skeptic. What that means for me is that generally I believe there's something. There's something beyond this. But as far as paranormal encounters, there is most often a logical, natural explanation. But it's those occurrences where you're going down the process of elimination and you're left scratching your head and things that you'll never forget. Those are the moments that keep me coming back. So sometimes they're few and far between, but when they happen, it makes you hungry for more. And sometimes it can be very confusing and be very, you'll be questioning your sanity sometimes. But those are the moments. That's what keeps me coming back. So before we get into it, Alan, I'd like to go ahead and play them that first slide as an introduction into myself. The best experiences are those personal encounters. And that's something that stays with you for the rest of your life.
Oh gosh. Oh no, something totally just pulled my hood. Oh my gosh.
I am Cris August. I am the director of OC Ghosts and Legends. We are an anomalous research team, also known as a paranormal research team. We are investigating and researching cases of alleged hauntings at various locations, be it historical landmarks, private homes, theaters, you name it. If it's got a legend and a story, we want to check it out. We categorize our tours and our lockdown investigations levels 1 through 4. And what we do is we conduct experiments. We like to kind of put that decision making in the hands of the people who come to these events. And these are little tools and devices that people can carry with them to measure what we call EMF, electromagnetic fields. We utilize the cameras, we utilize the audio recorders, we use all kinds of different gadgets, and we experiment and we have fun. What essentially catapulted me into this field by accident was going aboard the infamous Queen Mary in Long Beach. I believed in the possibility that maybe I took something home with me. From the sliding of a coffee cup while I'm typing on my computer, to being tapped on the shoulder, to hearing a voice in my ear, to seeing a shadow apparition in my bedroom at night. But that was really what sparked my curiosity into trying to make sense and have a better understanding of what this stuff is. We really take pride in giving what we call a behind-the-scenes experience. These are real experiences, real encounters. We like to display the evidence. We like to show you the evidence, and you draw your own conclusion. But we're not actors. If anything I've said has piqued your curiosity, we absolutely want to invite you to our exclusive and limited haunted events or investigations. If you own or manage a location that you believe to be haunted, we want to talk to you and we want to be able to have the opportunity to investigate for you. Please feel free to get in touch with us. You are not required to believe or to disbelieve, but we do want you to challenge belief. All right. So our motto is to challenge belief, and it's kind of a dual meaning. And what we mean by that is if you are someone who is a real hardcore believer, everything is a ghost, everything is a spirit, we want you to also leave room for the possibility that there are natural explanations, that there are things that can explain that occurrence. But also, if you are someone who is very skeptical, and that's okay. A lot of people think, well, it hasn't happened to me. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I don't believe in any of it until it happens to you, right? But even as a skeptic, have an open mind because it happens to you when you least expect it. And frankly, I like to say that spirit, ghosts get a bad rap. And that's thanks to movies, television, who have really dramatized and made it to be something evil. And I've been doing this we've been an organization for 15 years, but I've been doing this much longer than that. And all through that time, I have never been threatened. I have never felt in danger. I have never been hurt. So ghosts get a bad rap. So they're generally there to communicate. They were once people just like you and I. All right, so I just wanted to touch on some of the notable places that we have investigated as an organization. You may recognize a lot of these locations. We have had the great honor of being able to be the first, if not exclusively, the only organization that's been there to conduct paranormal investigations in these locations. And a lot of that is trust. And our resume and who we are really helps in the owners or the proprietors being comfortable to let us in the building. Some of our main staples, how many are familiar with Los Rios Street in San Juan Capistrano, historic Los Rios? If you haven't been down there, it's a must, even in the daytime. Go for a walk, have some tea. It's a 1700s street, the oldest occupied neighborhood in California, basically where Orange County began. So I highly recommend even just a daytime visit down there. Black Star Canyon, Silverado Canyon, is one of our signatures. The what's known as Suicide Bridge in Pasadena, Star of India, San Diego. Ship has sailed around the world 27 times, the oldest active sailing ship in the world. Steam Ferry Berkeley, right next door. The B-39 Soviet submarine, we exclusively investigated that. It has since been scrapped. It just was taken in water, and they didn't want to spend the money to keep it maintained. So they took it out to Mexico and ended up scrapping it. We were really bummed about that. Gem Theater, Garden Grove. We had some interesting investigations there. Waffle House, Santa Ana. Hotel Leger. I don't know if you're familiar with Mokelumne Hill out in Central California. The Hassayampa Hotel. Most recent, which I'll be telling you about, is Benton Springs, California. Has anybody heard of it? It's kind of a hidden gem out there. And as you heard Mary make the introduction, we love to find the hidden gems. Everyone loves, the Whaley House, the Queen Mary, all the notorious locations, but everyone's been there, done that, right? We want to go in with an organic, fresh mind without any preconceived ideas of what we're walking into. So we like to find the places that are fresh and nobody's been. My most favorite and my most cherished, the Elvis Presley estate in Palm Springs, California. Nobody to this day has investigated any Elvis Presley property. Nobody will ever get into Graceland. That's a no-go. That's not going to happen. But the only other house that Elvis owned was in Palm Springs, California. And we spent many weekends spending the night there, and we have some interesting stories from that location. Our signature also, Brackenfern Manor and Tudor House, Lake Arrowhead. That's a big one. Omen House in Beverly Hills. It is not the home of where the tragic Sharon Tate LaBianca murders took place. It is the home next door. which has a lot of unique, strange energy there. Foxfire Restaurant, maybe some of you will recognize that. Foxfire, it's been demolished. We were the only ones that got in there before it was demolished. Clown Motel, Tonopah, Nevada. Mitzvah Hotel. Our other pride and joy, the Grand Canyon Caverns, Peach Springs, Arizona. It's not the Grand Canyon. It's about an hour from the Grand Canyon, and it is a 65 million year old cavern located 121 stories beneath the Earth's surface. So investigating a cavern that is darker than the dark. There is no sound. You can hear your heart beating. That is how quiet it is down there. No life, no water, no bugs. I've never seen an ant. It is just a dry cavern, and I'll tell you, we've had some of the most remarkable experiences investigating the caverns. Another cave, Colossal Cave, Vale, Moaning Caverns, another cavern. You guys may be surprised to see this one, the Mission Viejo Library. Not many people are aware of it. We kept it fairly on the down low, but that was a very fruitful investigation, and we worked closely with the library, and nothing bad is happening over there, nothing negative, so it's okay to go in the library. We think a lot of that's just residual, just spirit doing whatever it is that they do. So nothing harmful in there. So don't be afraid to go to the library if you happen to go over there. Old Montana State Prison, Camino Real Playhouse in San Juan Capistrano, Trevor's at the Tracks, Vintage Steakhouse, Rancho Capistrano Winery, O'Neill Museum and Leck House, and another recent one, the Orange Grove Masonic Lodge in Orange, California. So this is just a handful of some of the places that we've investigated, and this is not, of course, inclusive of private homes, of some places we can't mention out of privacy and respect. So, all right. This is kind of interesting. They don't do these polls often, but a 2020 poll of Americans was taken, and the results are 45% of people believe in ghosts. That's come a long way versus 10 years prior. People that believe ghosts can come back to haunt certain places at about 43%. Those who personally felt the presence or a spirit or a ghost is 36%. And those who say they've actually communicated directly with the spirit or ghost, that's about 13%. So I don't know if that's surprising to some of you, but people are opening their mind to a lot of this. All right. Another survey by Realtor.com. This one's fun. Would you live in a haunted house? Show of hands. How many would live? Some brave people. Okay, all right, there we go. Those who said they would, 47%. Those on the fence, 27%. 26%, which is most people in here, but would never consider it. Responses may vary depending on the type of paranormal activity. So for those if it's maybe an occasional shadow, I guess I can deal with it. But maybe if they're throwing my coffee cups, that's a different story, right? Right? Maybe if it's a hot or a cold spot, or maybe the hair on their arm stands up once in a while, some people can deal with that. No big deal. But would it change your mind if the price was really low? If it was cheap, would you live in a haunted house? Show of hands. Okay, some more. Okay. The price will make a big difference, right? Unless it's a poltergeist or something, then probably not. All right. Now, what is it about a house that makes it haunted? So when asked, and when we look at all the spooky happenings that make people think that their house is haunted, strange noises topped the list at about 44%. This was followed by shadow apparitions, 38%, hot and cold spots, 37%, the feel of certain rooms. Have you ever had that sensation when you walk into a room and something's just off? You probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you feel weird. It's that energy that when you walk in that room. Odd pet behavior. Can we all agree it's the cats? Mine too. Dogs too, probably, but the cats, they know when they're staring in that corner, right? Items moving and the feel of being touched, about 29%, close tie to odd pet behavior. Levitating objects, understandably, very small percentage. I've never witnessed anything levitating. I'm not saying it's not possible, but some people claim to have seen it. But I have yet to see it myself. I welcome it. All right, so what are ghosts and apparitions? They have long been regarded as earthbound spirits of deceased humans and reported since ancient times and across cultures and geographical areas. This is nothing new. Although media has now been portraying this a lot more often, this is not new. Human beings have been reporting this since the beginning of human existence. So we can thank movies for helping bring this along, but this isn't a trend, so to speak. All right. Types of haunts. So we have intelligent hauntings. Now, intelligent hauntings are events involving spirits that interact with the living. These are not truly supernatural entities. However, they are humans who once knew life as we know it. They appear to maintain the same personalities in the afterlife that they possessed during their physical lives. If the deceased person was kind and thoughtful in life, then the hauntings will be of a benevolent nature. If the deceased had been hostile or aggressive, the hauntings will reflect this. Now, pardon my French, but the way I like to say it, if you were an a-hole in life, you are probably going to be an a-hole in the afterlife. Does that make sense? It doesn't necessarily mean something's demonic or evil. If you're a jerk, you're a jerk, right? And that's going to transfer over. Whatever the spirit's personality, it will seek attention by opening and closing doors, creating noises such as footsteps or whispers, interfering with electronics, and even conjuring a physical touch. Although such encounters can be hair-raising and terrifying for us, for the living, for the most part, they are designed to catch your interest or your attention. So, meaning they're intelligent, they are purposely trying to interact with you. It's purposeful. It can be a lot of stories saying, I left my keys on that table and I searched around the house for the last 15 minutes searching for those keys. I know I put them there. They come back around the house and they're right there. Or they've been moved in a different room. So this is all attention. This is trying to get your attention. That's an intelligent haunt. All right, how about residual or haunting phenomena? This is a very common report. The spirits are not aware of either the people or the surroundings in their vicinity, and they do not interact with the living. It is as if they have left an imprint or energy on an object or structure. Residual activity or haunting phenomena can be of more than one person. It can be of animals. It can be inanimate objects such as a building long since demolished, or even animated scenes such as the reenactment of an ancient battle. An example of residual, I'll use San Juan Capistrano, Los Rios Street. Many of you may be familiar with the Swallows Parade, how they reenact a lot of that. They might have horse-drawn carriages or something. Let's say somebody walking down Los Rios Street, the neighborhood. It's not the Swallows Day Parade. It's not the festival. There should be no horse-drawn carriages. Somebody's walking their dog at night and just casually doing their thing. And then they look up and they witness a horse-drawn carriage. They see the person on the carriage. They're in period attire. It's as if they are looking into a movie. It's real to them. And then in a moment, it's gone. This is considered residual. It's as if it's like a repeat in time or even another timeline, but they are not aware of us. They don't see us. But you in that moment may just catch a quick glimpse of that. And it's very quick. But the person who's describing it to you will tell you it was real. I saw it. I know exactly what I saw. I know it sounds crazy, but I watched it. I saw the horses. I saw the carriage. I saw the wheels turning. I heard the wheels turning. It's very vivid. That is known as residual. So we believe places like Los Rios Street and San Juan Capistrano, a lot of residual activity, especially considering its history. I do want to tell a new interesting story that happened actually this past weekend to me, talking about residual, or maybe even, dare I say, another timeline. This is probably, of all the places I've been to, this might be one of the top 3 strange experiences I've ever had in my life. And we were at what was called Benton Hot Springs. It is an old silver mining town. It is near Bodie, California. Bodie was gold mining, and Benton Hot Springs is about an hour from there, and this is where they had silver mining. So the town still exists, a beautiful little place to camp, and they've got natural hot springs and a tub. I really recommend it. Beautiful, beautiful place. Long story short, there is an old hotel on the property. It's known as the Waiwera Hotel that was built in 1904. It's about a 10-room hotel. And the proprietors and the owners of the location gave us access to investigate this building. Back in October, I was there to give a presentation to their nonprofit. And the husband, one of the proprietors, there was a back room that we hadn't been able to see before. And I said, Bill, would it be too much trouble? Can you show my colleague, Violet, can you show us that back room? There's just something weird about it. And we really just want to take a peek back there. He said, we don't really let people back there. I said, it'll just take 2 minutes. We really want to see what it looks like. He said, sure, come on back here. So we go looking, and we go around a few corners, and he shows us a hall. It is a long black corridor, and I still see it in my mind's eye. Bill, let's pretend I'm Bill, and this is the corridor, okay? Bill has got Violet standing here, and he's saying, yes, here's the corridor, and Violet's peeking back there. She's looking, wow, that's really scary. That's really scary. And I'm waiting for them. It's a small space. I'm waiting for them to move out of the way so I can go and take a peek. So they move out of the way, and I come and take a peek. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is really, really scary. It was dark and black, and it went way back there. So fast forward, I'm talking to my other colleagues about it. I said, you guys got to see this corridor back there. It is really disturbing. It's really, really scary. So we were talking about it casually. Fast forward to just last weekend, we go back there, and my same colleague, Violet, is with me. And we brought another one of our colleagues, Mike. And very nonchalantly, we said, Mike, you need to come and see this corridor. Come and check this out. Very just nonchalantly, like we're going to show him the corridor. And I peek around the corner. It's a wall. And I said, this can't be right. Violet, come look at this. And she says, where is the corridor? I said, there was a corridor, right? She says, yes, we've been talking about it. And I'm looking, there's cobwebs. Okay, so they didn't build this in 6 months. They didn't put a wall here in 6 months. I'm looking around, there's even a shelf. It's just a wall. And I'm really confused. I said, we must have this wrong. We're looking around. Were we confusing this with another hall? And there was nothing. There was no other corridor. So I go knock on the door of Bill and the proprietors, the owners. Say, Bill, this is going to sound crazy, but hear me out. Do you remember in October that you showed us that back room and there was a long, dark corridor? He said, I never showed you guys that back room. Yeah, you did. I remember it. I'm pretty level-headed, Bill. I see it. I see you showing Violet. He's like, I don't show anybody that back room. I said, it was quick. It was 2 or 3 minutes. I didn't show anybody the back room. I said, Violet, help me out here. Help me out here. And she says, I remember it. And we have team members who remember us talking about it. He says, I'm sorry, guys. I don't remember showing that to you. I said, how long has that wall been there? He said, that's been covered up for at least 50 years. And it used to be a corridor. And we are racking our brains. We both see it very vividly. I know. And it was daytime when he showed it to us. So there was light. It wasn't dark. There was no confusion. Could it be that we were witnessing something in a different time frame? Because there's no other explanation for this. And I'm pretty sane. And I'm racking my brain about it and thinking I must have gotten confused. But I'm positive there was not a wall there. And it is one of the weirdest sensations in thinking I've got to be losing my mind that I saw the corridor. So when we're talking about residual, such as a building being long since demolished, but that hallway had been covered for 50 years, but it had once been a long corridor. It is a bizarre experience, and I'm still very confused. If it weren't for my colleague having witnessed the same exact thing and it being very clear in her brain, and for Bill to have zero recollection of showing us, it is very strange. So sometimes those situations are weirder than seeing an apparition. It makes you question your sanity. I just wanted to take a side shift there and share that story. Poltergeist. We all have heard of poltergeist, right? And we can thank the movie. Poltergeist is a German word that means noisy ghost. Poltergeist activity is most often a misdiagnosed intelligent haunting. Poltergeists are man-made in the sense that they are usually attracted to or centered on one person. And that person is referred to as a trigger. Most commonly, the person is a young child, specifically a young girl, similar to what Poltergeist portrayed. So poltergeists aren't inherently evil. They're just noisy. They're obnoxious. They're the ones that are going to slam your cabinets. They're the ones that are going to make all the racket and the noise just to irritate you. That's a poltergeist. This one you may be a little intimidated when you see it, but has anybody seen a shadow person before? Okay, possibly. When you if you've seen one, was it scary? No, didn't bother you? To me, shadow people are really intimidating. Doesn't mean that they're bad. Just they're scary when you see them, for me. They're usually described as being human-like, but not exclusively. They can be described as darker than the dark. Light typically does not shine through their static form, as if their bodies are made of shadows rather than flesh and blood. Superstitions surround shadow people sightings, as people tend to believe they are always evil. Because shadow beings are black in color, Western society immediately associates them with being negative in nature. Usually, the best way to put shadow people are they don't have any distinct features. You can't see their clothing or their facial features. It's just black mass. That's it. No characteristics whatsoever. but they're intimidating. So some of my first experiences involve shadow people, and they can be scary. They can be very scary. This is an example of actually somebody on one of our tours in San Juan Capistrano that captured this. You never know what people will send in. But this one is very unique, and I'll explain why we're considering this a shadow person. So it'll show it twice. So if you don't get it on the first time, we'll try it again on the second. Did you spot it? So look to the right of the jail cell. It's very fast. It's quick. Catch it? Sort of? Okay. I know the light in the room is a little bit difficult to see it. Now, the reason that it's unique is because, I don't know if you can tell, in front of the jail cell, that's an actual original jail cell in San Juan Capistrano. It's moved around a lot in the community. But in front of that jail cell, there is a white pickup truck that's always parked there. And if you were a skeptic and thinking, okay, maybe it was somebody riding by on a bicycle, maybe their light reflection, we're going down the list. What could have caused this shadow reflection? But what's interesting is that the shadow moves in front of the truck. So, and a light reflection would usually illuminate the majority of the screen. So with that white truck there is a black mass that blocks it out, that blocks out the truck. And this is something we haven't really seen before. And it just moves from the right side of the screen towards the left side of the screen. And this is a very rare capture, but more importantly, somebody on a tour captured it. And a lot of times people will send us stuff and say, hey, is this an orb? And we just tell them, it's bugs, it's dust. But once in a blue moon, we catch a real doozy, and somebody does turn in something unique in nature. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. Our bread and butter, EVPs. Now, how many people know what EVP stands for? A couple people back there. Okay, EVP stands for electronic voice phenomena. This is, like I said, our bread and butter. This is everything. Forget all the fancy equipment, the good old-fashioned audio recorder. This is our strongest tool in an investigation. Now, EVP is the term traditionally used to describe anomalous, intelligible speech recorded in or produced by electronic devices, and for which no currently understood physical explanations can account. They are believed to be formed by the transformation of audio frequency energy into a simulated voice. Now, EVP initially involved audio tape recorders, the old-fashioned analog tapes, right? And some people still swear by that. But in later years, virtually any recording medium became a vehicle for phenomena, and today digital voice recorders are the device of choice for traditional EVP experimentation. It can even be our phones. We've got really nice recorders on our phones now, but traditionally we use separate digital audio recorder devices. All right, now, there are different EVP classifications. The classifications of EVPs can be a little complex, but for this purpose, I'm just breaking it down really simply by Class A's, Class B's, and Class C's. Now, a Class A is considered like the holy grail of an EVP. These are messages that can be heard without headphones and that people can generally agree on its content. It is so vivid, it is so clear, there is no arguing what is being said. A Class B requires a headphone to distinguish a message content, and not everyone will agree on the message. So there might be some back and forth of what is being said, but it's still audible. A Class C requires headphones, often needs amplification, and filtering and will seldom even be heard by others. So that Class Cs are usually argued significantly on what is being said, how many syllables. So Class Cs are the lowest of the classification. Anything below Class C, we might mention it in a report, but there's if a skeptic's looking at it, they're not going to be impressed. Sometimes they're not even impressed by Class Cs. So it is important to note that EVP by definition are voices and or sounds captured or recorded media and not voices or sounds heard audibly. The difference is when you hear it in real time, that is considered a disembodied voice. EVP is captured on electronic equipment. Does that make sense? There's a difference between the two. All right. Now, I hope that this will play well. I don't know if it will. Normally, these things are best heard on headphones, but I went ahead and used a clip that hopefully you guys can hear. Just a little background. This was obtained on Los Rios Street in San Juan Capistrano. If you ever go, there is the Historical Society building and a little house right behind it known as the Leck House. And that house is where the action is. And not many people would know that. People look at the O'Neill house and think, wow, what a beautiful house. I said, no. Go to that one back there. That's where it's at. And I like to say my spidey senses have always gone off the charts at the Leck House. Of all the places I've been to, when I walk back there, something is going on back there. It's not bad, but something is going on. And that's that little house. And believe it or not, that is not its original location. That house was actually picked up in 3 pieces and transferred over from the Ortega Highway over to where it stands today on Los Rios Street. So that's not its original location. It also doesn't have any history of anything bad happening on the property. People don't have to die or have a tragic death or a murder take place on a property for it to be haunted. That's a common misconception. So, interestingly, the activity that we have happen here is not happening inside the house. It's happening outside the house where there's an old pepper tree. And this EVP was taken right under that pepper tree, right outside the house. And this was actually during an investigation we had, and we had booby-trapped the outside because we knew that that's where things were happening. We had cameras in every direction. We wanted to see what was going on. And we were doing an EVP session. There were about 4 or 5 of us sitting out there. We had two grown men leaning up against a tree. And we had 2 ladies sitting on the ground with a recorder, and they were documenting everything we were doing. And then there was me. And I'm standing up, and I am about to end the audio session. And you're going to hear me say, okay, ending session. Our field recorder is going to say 9:34. She's documenting the time. That's why she's saying it out loud. And you're going to hear me say, I'm picking up the recorder. The reason I'm doing that is because when I pick up the recorder, what's happening? Noise. A lot of noise, fumbling around is happening. It's not a ghost. So I am notating, I'm picking up the recorder, fumble, fumble, fumble. Right as I say, picking up the recorder, you are going to hear a voice. It is very clear, very vivid. What I want you to tell me is male or female, how many syllables you hear, and what you think is being said. And are they happy? Are they in distress? Scared? I'm curious what you guys are going to hear, so I'm not going to tell you, but I'll get your feedback. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Okay.
All right, moving 9:39.
Picking up audio recorder. Okay. After picking up the audio recorder, we'll play it again. Right after I say that, listen for that.
All right, moving 939.
Picking up audio recorder. Did you guys pick it up? Right after I say picking up the audio recorder. How many syllables do you hear?
7.
7. Okay.
Depends if it's the next. There's a pause.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a little girl saying, okay.
So you're going to hear some laughing in the background. That's our team member because she's getting up and she's saying, I've got dirt all over me. That's her, but it's right between that. So I'll give you a hint. In my opinion, there's about 3 syllables. And I think you're onto something. It's a little girl. Okay, now that you have that in your mind, can you play that again, Alan?
All right, moving 939.
Picking up audio recorder. So 3, you're getting 3. So something is going da, 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 right? That's not us. That's I'm talking, picking up the recorder, and there's chatter in the background, but there is something coming forward that's a high-pitched 3-syllable, sounds like a child. Okay. What is the tone? Do you think they're in distress? Do you think they're excited? Do you think they're scared? What are you getting? Excited? Okay. And I'll have you play it one more time and I'll tell you what I think is being said.
All right, moving 939.
Picking up audio recorder. Who said that? I'll get it. Okay. I think you're onto something. Anybody else think something different? Okay. Yeah? Go away. Okay. That can be a good one. The weirdest one I've heard said was time for school. Somebody said that one. I'm like, I don't think I hear that one. In my opinion, and doesn't mean it's right, and what I feel is tying into this, just before I picked up the recorder, and what I like to say is, all right, you got 1 minute. We're packing it up. This is your last chance to say something. We're listening for you. Please, shout, scream. We want to hear you. We got 1 more minute, and we're gonna turn everything off. So we do it, and all right, we're calling it 9:34. Picking up, and I go picking up the recorder, and what to me it sounds like, come get it. So you are onto something with it. Yeah, come get it, or don't get it, or something like that. And we're not threatened by her. We've picked her up a few times. This child spirit. People have seen child apparitions by the tree over there. It almost feels like she's a little mischievous, but not threatening. And this is what we consider a Class A EVP. There's no editing to this. This is a voice that came through that should not be there. It is not me. It is not the 2 grown men against the tree. It is not the 2 women sitting on the floor, because the cameras show them talking amongst themselves, and it doesn't match the words. There was no contamination elsewhere. This is a solid, strong voice that came through that shouldn't be there. And what's weirder, nobody acknowledged it at the time. So something that was that clear, nobody said, hey, did somebody hear that voice? Who was talking? Nobody acknowledged it and thought that was unusual. So that's a great example of a Class A. Now, this next slide is a recent one. And this one's pretty phenomenal. This was recent at Benton Springs. And this is taking place in the Wells Fargo General Store. And this building goes way back into the early, late 1800s, early 1900s. It's full of antiques. And one of our team members was sitting in there. There's actually just 2 team members in there. And one of them, she was using tarot cards just to kind of pull cards, just to kind of get the feel of the room. But you're going to hear her say, I don't feel comfortable. Something is weird. I don't feel comfortable. And there is a voice that comes through. It is not her. And there's only one other person in the room, and it's a gentleman. He's a 6'4", very big man, and he does not sound like what you are going to hear. You're going to hear what sounds like a kind of a smack on the table. She sighs. She's kind of very frustrated. I don't feel well, and she sighs. And she slaps on the table, and there is a voice. I'll give you a hint. It's about 5 or 6 syllables, and it's a whisper. When you hear a whisper, that is not her. Go ahead.
I'm a little uneasy right now. I don't want to move. No.
So once I tell you what it is, then I think you'll hear it differently. So after she says that, there's nobody else in the room, and something comes through and says, "You can't fight that, Diane." Her name is Diane. And she's feeling very overwhelmed. And Spirit, it's almost like they're comforting her, kind of saying, it's okay. Don't fight it. It's all right. So perhaps once now you know what we think is being said, you might hear it differently.
I'm a little uneasy right now. I don't want to move. No.
That is what we consider a Class A EVP. There's no edits to it. When you hear that back on playback, when you know there's nobody else in the room, there's something that really makes the hair on your arm stand up. But what we've learned about it, and what the owners of the property are very pleased to hear, is that whatever is there is not harmful. It's actually a lot of familial ties to the family. The family ties go back to the 1800s. So it's actually very comforting to them. And whatever's going on, it's as if they're just kind of doing their thing. They're going about business as they always did, but they are, would you consider this residual or an intelligent haunt? Intelligent because it's responding and it's intelligently interacting. It's not just saying Kool-Aid or something random, you know? It's an intelligent response to what is going on in the room. Although we think there is residual activity that is happening. And we did capture footsteps that was taking place in the Wells Fargo room when we vacated the building. It was about 1.5 minutes of walking. Nobody was in the building. But what we established, and based on our experiment of recreating it, is what it sounds like is somebody kind of moving 1, 2, 3, and they'll place something on a table, turn around, pick something up again, organize something. The reason I say that, because it almost sounded like the movement never went anywhere. If a recorder's here, you would hear it walking away from the recorder, getting closer to the recorder, right? But it was stationary in one place. And so this, we believe, is residual activity because they're just working. It was a kitchen, right? So they're just doing whatever they did, and it's harmless, right? So there is a little comfort to the owners who feel like maybe that's old family members who are still present, and they're just doing whatever they did when they lived there. So nothing to be afraid of. All right, so I covered a lot there, and I'm very interested, and this is probably a good time to get some questions here, if anybody has any feedback. Yeah.
Did your colleague, Diane, did she hear the voice when it was said, or it was only on the recording?
Only on the recording.
What about the footsteps?
Footsteps was only on the recording because we weren't in the building during the footsteps. We had actually vacated to go to the cemetery. So we had left audio recorders in the building. I personally like to listen to what's going on when nobody's there. It's kind of creepy. But Diane was not aware that there was a voice there.
Do you ever get any that you can actually hear?
Yes, there are some that we hear in real time and that do transfer onto audio. Some would argue that's not EVP, however, that it's just a disembodied voice that's being picked up on the audio. Some people strictly view EVP as something only heard on the digital recorder. But there have I've had my moments where we're in a session and something, I'll say, stop and listen back to our recording 20 seconds ago. I heard the sound of a child and it said, help me. It's very clear and I'm right in tune. It's rare. Believe me, it's rare. It doesn't happen often, but it's cool when that happens and then you're validated when it plays back on recorder. But some would argue that's not EVP. Yeah. Okay. Good question.
Can you speak to orbs? A friend of mine's adult child passed, and that's when orbs started, and she has it recorded. Then she moved to another house, and the orbs continued.
Okay, good question. Orbs, most often, now it depends on the environment, orbs most of the time are dust particles or bugs, light reflection off of a flash. That's not to say that all orbs are explained that way. Sometimes light anomalies in orbs are captured just visually. Was this captured on camera? Did it move? Okay, with different colors. Most of the time it is dust. And especially if you're in an outside environment, you're kicking up dirt flies up into the lens, you snap a photo, and the flash reflects off the dust particles. Bugs tend to go run through the lens, and it'll almost seem like a rod. You've probably seen photographs of like a rod glowing in a picture. That's usually an insect zipping through the lens. There are things that we don't automatically discount as an orb because they don't meet the MO of dust and bugs. Sometimes they're different colors, and sometimes they move about in the photograph, and some would argue that that could be a manifestation of spirit in a photograph. So it's all circumstantial depending on the environment, but usually the rule of thumb is most of the time it's dust particles. Good question.
When I moved into the village a couple of years ago, my place had been vacant for a while, and I had asked my realtor if somebody had passed away in my place. And he said by law, they only had to tell you if it was 5 years. And I always wondered why. And then last year I found out somebody had died in my place. It wasn't the woman who had moved out, but it was the first occupant. And I just always wondered, what's with the 5 years? I mean, this is Laguna Woods. There's a lot of death.
Right.
You know?
Right. The laws in the states vary. I don't know, maybe somehow it's less threatening by doing 5 years. Frankly, it doesn't matter how many years. It should be irrelevant. Some don't have a rule at all. I'm not sure the 5 years, but have you experienced things in the house?
I've questioned a few things.
Okay.
You know, and I was like, did you hear that?
Yeah.
You know, or just things, you know, and it's like, okay, it's all in my head.
Sure.
And then I started asking around, it's not me. And then I asked, and somebody said, oh yeah, somebody died in there. And I said, where? And they knew the whole thing because they lived there since the place opened.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, nice.
Right. Well,
you know, was it a good death? You know, How did she die?
Sure. Most, people make a choice. If they are in a house that they feel is active or they feel something's in it, people either accept it's there. Hey, we're going to coexist, and it is what it is. Some people just want nothing to do with it, and they want to pack up and go. As I've said, spirit is fairly harmless. You make a decision. I'm okay with this. You do you, I do me. We can coexist here. Do the laundry maybe once in a while. Probably not going to get that, but hey, we're worth a shot. But generally, if it's really uncomfortable, we always recommend people to set a boundary. And, it sounds weird, but talk out loud and just say, hey, thank you for being here. I appreciate you, but I really don't want to be startled and I don't want to be scared. So I see you, I acknowledge you, and let's just don't scare me.
If I've ever felt anything, it always felt like uplifting, like, oh, that's cool.
Great. Great. You're embracing it. It is, it doesn't bother you. And that's a healthy outlook. Some people, I think, just, again, they automatically attribute that heavy feeling in a building to be uncomfortable and unpleasant. And that's just what's ingrained in us because of movie and television and maybe religion tells us that as well. But it's not bad. I will say it's uncomfortable, and I'll be the first to tell you that. My first experiences were really uncomfortable because I don't know how to respond to it. I was very green. I still am. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't know everything. I'm still experiencing things as I go, but it catches you off guard. And when you're seeing something that's not supposed to be there, that's going to scare you. And if it doesn't, you're really brave. I want to be you.
I think it always just makes me give pause.
Yeah.
Like, what was that?
Yeah. If it doesn't bother you, good on you. That's, just let it be. And maybe just even acknowledge it. Hey, thank you. I see you. We're cool. We're good.
As an open-minded scientist,
Cool.
I have 2 comments and concerns.
Okay.
Number 1 is that the characteristics of a critical analysis depend somewhat on reproducibility. And with these paranormal phenomena, we don't have reproducibility. As example of your seeing this hallway seen once and only once by you and someone else.
Yep.
The second comment I have is regard to the methods of analysis. You had 50 people listen to some barely recognizable voice, each bringing his own life experience to trying to analyze that sound. Certainly, there are many other things you could do, like an analysis of the sonogram. Then find, for example, 7 different words that could match that.
Yep.
So, as I say, I'm open-minded, but it takes a lot to make a convincing proof of these phenomena.
And you are absolutely right. Now, there is something called the power of persuasion, which is why when we're presenting a potential EVP, I don't like to tell you what it is, because unfortunately, what I tell you, then you're going to start to hear it, right? So,
It was a girl.
Well, she mentioned it was a girl. That was her guess. So in order for us to move along, we could sit here and listen to it for 3 hours. And so for the purpose of moving along in the presentation, I had to kind of guide you guys through it. We want people to draw their own conclusions, and we don't want to plant seeds into what we want people to believe. But for the sake of this, I had to kind of guide you guys along. And normally we would use, analysis for audio clips to view, especially the megahertz of the file, and to view those things. But we don't have all day to do all those things. So I'm just doing a real simplified version. But those are all logical explanations. As far as the hallway, how do you reproduce that? I mean, it just happened. I wish it can be reproduced, but that's where, even skeptics, when we're going into the concept of physics and string theory and different timelines, I mean, these are things that are actually being looked at scientifically. So I don't have an answer for it. I wish that could be reproduced. That would make me feel less crazy. But a lot of paranormal experiences are what we call personal experiences. And in a perfect world, we can replicate all those things. And that's where, science is not quite on board yet. They should be, and this is inevitable. But if something happens to you that didn't happen to me, I can't say it didn't happen because it's yours. It happened to you. It didn't happen to me. So yes, part of our purpose is to try to find ways to replicate it. And when we do capture an EVP, what are we doing to solicit that response? And can we continue to recreate it? So that's a valid point. I agree with you. Absolutely.
Well, what do you call it when you positively know somebody passed away and you're not present anywhere near them?
When you know somebody passed away, I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand, and they're not present.
Okay. When somebody dies and you know it exactly at the same time, but you're not present where that person died.
Oh, like it wouldn't be a shared death experience. Not even so much a premonition. It's just a feeling, especially if it's a familial tie. Is it someone related? Yeah. There's theories behind that. When people just get kind of that sensation that something's wrong, so-and-so, or you just know that they passed on and maybe it happened 10 minutes ago and you were not aware. There isn't quite a definition for that, but that is a phenomenon that does get reported. The closest thing I would consider it to be is a shared death experience, but not quite the same thing.
Have you ever gone to a location where, like a traffic accident and someone's been killed? Or we all saw the movie Ghost and Patrick Swayze's killed in the middle of a street.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced, because these are outside public areas, not a cavern or a house or
Right.
something along those lines?
You mean like right when it happens?
No,
Or
to go back to it later.
go back to it later? We haven't done anything like that. I guess the problem with doing things outside is you have so much contamination. And so we need a very controlled environment. So even our outside locations can be difficult, even way in a canyon where there's generally no people out there. But you have a lot of, animal noise, you have, brush, you have wind, you have all kinds of things that are contaminating the environment to make it difficult to understand what you're hearing. So usually outside locations, depending on where it is, it can be challenging to collect data in a very controlled environment. But maybe, depending on where it is, if it's got a little bit of an environment where we can control a lot of the contamination, that might be something to consider. Good question.
In your investigations, have you ever experienced where something has physically changed, like a painting, maybe it's been altered or?
Altered, that's a good question. Nothing's been altered, but things have been moved. But a painting, that's a unique one. I would love to see that. That would be quite interesting.
What I'm having difficulty is finding like a copy of the original one, and so that the differences can be seen.
Yeah.
I've taken pictures, and then on my phone, then the picture will also change.
That's cool. Maybe, keep at it. You never know when you're going to get it. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not just me noticing it. Fortunately, my husband has noticed a few of the things too. So
Yeah, you never know when you'll catch it. I mean, every investigation we do, we always get a baseline. So we take photographs of every single room, make sure everything is in place, and then look at it later to see if anything has been moved. Most of the time, if not all the time, everything's as it should be. But we have had a few occurrences where chairs have been moved or a chair was leaning against a table that wasn't like that before. So taking those baseline photographs are really important. Okay. So we can't just rely on our memory.
Okay. Have you studied people who have paranormal experiences and not just places that have had those experiences? I mean, if the person walks into somebody's house and stuff starts happening because of their presence versus the place.
Yes, that's a very good point. In fact, we like to point out to people that, especially people who come to our events, we do public investigation events where people can come out and experience an investigation for themselves. And a lot of activity may be happening, but we remind them that the activity that's happening may not be here. It may be something that you brought with you. And that's something that people forget. And it really kind of changes their perspective. Oh, what if I'm taking something with me? Or maybe they had somebody that they lost recently, a loved one who stays with them, and they're bringing it with them. And this is just more of an opportunity for them to communicate. So it isn't always just the location. And I always feel that it's the company that you keep and who they're bringing, the friends that they're bringing with them is always a good opportunity that we may get some interaction.
When you went down into the cavern, what you said there was a lot of activity. What was it? Yes.
I don't know if anybody's traveled Route 66. I'm sure everyone's kind of traveled 66 at one point in their life. It's certainly a stop you want to take, and they do little daytime tours to go down there. They actually have a suite down there where it's a bed, a little kitchenette, a bathroom. It's a platform and a couch, so you can rent the suite down there. Not everybody can say they slept in a 65 million year old dry cavern. The things that happen down there, it's probably one of my scariest experiences. There's nothing scarier than being in a place that is darker than the dark. You can't see your hand in front of your face when it is dark down there. And when you're sleeping down there and there's no noise, there's no sound, no rodents, nothing, your mind is racing. And I would hear, there was a wooden platform where they built the suite. In the middle of the night, there would be heavy walking and footsteps. Walking between, there were two double beds. I remember I was frozen. I'm like, I'm not moving. And it was captured on recording, so you can hear the heaviness of the footsteps. My colleague was dead asleep in the next bed. There's nobody down there. You have to come down a long elevator to get to the bottom, and you would also hear the elevator coming down. So we know that nobody was down there. Way behind it, there's more cave areas, more tunnels, and places that have yet to be discovered. Caverns back there. There's a lot of shadow play down there. When you're looking down long hallways, you'll see a lot of shadows peeking around, especially when you've got the light shining. Sensations of something being close to you, something touching you, something. It's kind of running the gamut of different feelings and experiences. The cavern is something else. But I like to say when I did the ghost adventures with them, I gave them the run of everything. I said, we've investigated this place for years. I'll tell you where everything's happening. They didn't really care about that. They want to develop their own story. It's entertainment. But I said, the cavern is wonderful. Things are happening down there. But the majority of things are happening upstairs. It's in the restaurant. I saw a full-bodied apparition up there of a Native American woman. We heard running, that's on recording, something lighter in weight, thinking it's a child, running across the restaurant. It's the caverns, we have a lot of great memories over there. So if you're ever going down 66, drop by the Grand Canyon Caverns. I highly recommend it. Good question. Thank you.
On the list of places you investigated, that was the Mission Viejo Library. That's a relatively new structure. And I always think that structures have to be really, really, really old in order to have some hauntings or whatever.
Common misconception, right? Something that has to be old to be active. A perfect example of this. Who's seen Poltergeist? Old movie, right? Pop quiz. Where was that house built over? Graveyard. Yeah. So we may have new housing developments, but they're built over something, right? So just because it's a new house or a new development doesn't mean it's not built over some kind of burial. And in fact, a lot of San Juan Capistrano is built over burial. The Mission Viejo Library, there's nothing tragic that happened on the property, nothing notable in that regard. But there are years worth of staff and employee librarian journaling of weird things that have been happening in the building. It was formerly native land, so that's something to factor in. But nothing that's threatening. It's all very benign, residual activity in there, and I think they all just embrace it. It is what it is. So it wasn't something we publicized. We kept it pretty much on the down low, but it's not really a secret. They embrace it, and we were shocked that they wanted it. We were blown away. We're like, really? You guys want it? But they were very wonderful, very accommodating, and it was a really good investigation. We got a few potential EVPs, but generally the experiences there were personal, more physical sensation in there, and just a lot of eyewitness accounts that we documented. So the library was a real pleasure, and we were honored to be able to investigate that. Yeah.
Well, I want to say that our time's up, and I want to have a big hand for Cris and all his presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.